really got to try on that left-hand side. What happened?
Oh, but I've gone up and over and bloody head over biscuit. It wasn't enough stability there for myself, but no, I was busting for a bit of meat this game. It didn't seem to work out.
Hello, cheers, and welcome to the Scrum of the Earth podcast, the weekly show for news, reviews, great interviews, and so much more, all about the world of rugby. My name is David Lawrence. I'm an American rugby fan who follows the game wherever I can find it, all over the globe. If you'd like to get in touch, well, I'm easy to find on all your socials, and you can always just drop an email to thescrumoftheearth@gmail.com. Well, we had an insane amount of rugby to cover this weekend with the return of the URC and the Prem, along with all our usual suspects. So we're going to get this bad boy on the road. In the interest of time, we're skipping current updates, except to say that I've actually got COVID right now. So, if I seem a little off or need a drink of water, please forgive it. I'm hiding how angry I am right now because it means that my band had to cancel our Friday night show, but this show at least can go on. So anyway, that does mean we're going to skip current updates and go right into the news.
It's too good. People have to know.
No, Isa, it's definitely not good news this week, as the Dallas Jackals, who had their best ever season in the MLR just months ago, have thrown in the towel and will not continue to participate in the competition. Huge condolences to friend of the pod, Harley Worthy, who got pretty invested in the team, and, there's obviously countless others in the same boat. It honestly just sucks. When new franchises apply to become part of the MLR, and this is, just my very limited understanding of this process, so they're subject to a vetting process that seeks to determine the viability of the bid. One thing they're expressly told in emphatic fashion is, you will not be making money on this venture for a long time. I talked to CEO of the Free Jacks, Alex Magleby, pretty recently, and it's a known thing for every owner. He pointed out rugby barely makes any money in the best situations. So, if you're looking to make money with an American rugby team, you need to be prepared to see no returns for years and years. Despite all this, from what I can tell, the Dallas owners just got sick of losing money and said, screw it. We're perfectly fine with putting a massive group of people out of work and crushing the hopes of a whole ton of fans. I'm so sad for these fans, but I'm beyond sad for the players. The whole thing reeks to high heaven. Dallas Jackals, we hardly knew ye. I, among others, will miss your presence in our domestic competition. MLR, can we, increase the level of scrutiny before we award franchises to short-sighted ownership groups? What a gut punch. Just so sad. Of course, thoughts of the week this week. My thoughts of the week are with the incredibly dumb new playoff format announced by Super Rugby. So last year, there were still 12 teams in the competition. Everyone seemed to agree 8 teams making the playoffs out of 12 was just silly. So sure enough, after losing the Melbourne Rebels, they decided to reduce the playoff teams to 6. Did they do the sensible and obvious thing that many competitions already do? Give the top 2 teams first-round byes, then have them face the winners of the other 2 games? Good heavens, no! They've decided to complicate it in a way that almost feels like it's a joke and they're just trolling us or hunting for clicks or something, because in the new format, you could theoretically lose your first playoff game and still be in it. Quoting here, quote, Super Rugby Pacific will have a complex new playoff system next season involving 6 teams rather than 8, which qualified for the postseason this year. Next season, the top 6 teams after the regular season will take part in 3 rounds of playoffs. The top 3 teams will host the 4th, 5th, and 6th place teams in the first playoff round. The winners of those matches will go on to the semifinals, along with the top-seeded loser from the first round. The winning teams from the first round of the playoffs will have home advantage in the semifinals, and the winners of those matches will contest the final. Quote, we want to create a competition where anyone can win, Super Rugby Pacific Chief Executive Jack Messley said in a statement on Friday. It's really exciting. Lots of thinking has gone into it. We think it's going to add a lot of interest for fans. We had lots of feedback about our 8-team finals series, and so we have listened to that, unquote. So I think there might have been a spelling error in that final edit, because when they said lots of thinking has gone into it, I feel pretty sure that TH should have been a DR, addressing the fans' concerns by making it even more convoluted to the point where it basically undermines the very meaning of knockout rugby. Guys, I love this competition, but you're just not doing yourselves any favors, surely. Anyway, That, of course, brings us to our reviews. Holy cow, all the rugby has come back. It's a bit overwhelming. As always, we'll start with the internationals, move on to the club competitions after that. The plan, trying to keep to our plan to highlight one match from each club competition. Of course, I always add a little extra for the Storm Week fixtures in the NPC. It's the only rugby happening on Wednesday, so it feels like a big deal, and I just love it. So we're starting with our internationals, and that starts us off with the boringly named Rugby Championship. It was back, starting with the Wallabies hosting the reeling All Blacks, who I imagine would be looking to make a point after their mini losing streak. The match was in Sydney. The Aussies did have some good news in terms of return from injuries, but you know they had to be sweating, given their collapse in the last round, combined with the potential wrath of the ABs, who still hadn't shown their top form in a good while. So for most of you, it goes without saying that this was the first match of the 2024 Bledisloe Cup, a contest which has been played out either since 1931 or 1932, depending on which side of the ditch you're on. But in short, it's the mostly annual mini competition between Australia and New Zealand. It's been a 2-test contest. It's been a 3-test contest, kind of back and forth. I think there was at least one year when it was a single test. So the problem with the 2-match format is if the series is drawn, like, the current holder retains the cup. So even when the teams are really closely matched, if they go 1-1, nothing changes. So, people tend to complain about the long stretches where New Zealand have it but go 1-1 or 1 and draw to keep it, and it's just happened a lot of times for extended periods. Speaking of which, the last time the Aussies actually had possession of the Bledisloe was in 2002, but I don't think people seem to remember how they did it. After losing all 3 Bledisloe tests to the All Blacks in 1997, the Wallabies roared back to a 3-victory revenge year in 1998, and then for the next 2 years in a row in 2-test series, won 1 and drew 1 before winning outright again in 2001. In 2002, it was another win plus draw to hold on, but that was the end of that. No love since then. All those games I just mentioned were really close. The highest score in any of them was 35. The lowest score was 7 by the Kiwis when they lost on the 28th of August in Sydney. So all this is to say, some current players like Tom Lynagh literally weren't even born the last time the Aussies wrested the cup from their neighbors. So let's be honest, it'd be a miracle if they won this week or next. So right at the start of this one, it was Will Jordan getting, what was it, his 9,000th try after just a couple of minutes to set the stage. Early on, it kind of looked like it might be a walkover. To their credit, the Aussies made it 14-28 at halftime, and after another yellow against the New Zealand, the Wallabies were down just 10 with 10 minutes to play. Could they pull a rabbit out of the hat? James Slipper, who became the most capped Wallaby of all time this weekend, he had to leave with an injury, which is sad to see, but right after that, an intentional knock-on, kind of a boneheaded move by Caleb Clark. It meant the hosts would have a 2-player advantage. Looked like Ikitau got through as the crowd went out of their minds, but it got called back. And the Wallabies were still up a player. Was that the window closing, though? 30 seconds left. They gave away a penalty, and the All Blacks held on barely to get a win that guaranteed they'd keep that Bledisloe for another year. A massive letdown for the fans in Sydney. The press in the Aotearoa is going to be red hot this week for sure. Final score, 28-31. What a game. After that, the Springboks were visiting Argentina. I admit, I didn't manage to catch this one. Not even sure how it slipped through the cracks, if I'm honest. But it turned out to be another shocker from the Pumas. Well, I mean, can we even say that at this point? Like, if you catch them on any given day, there's a 50% chance they'll bomb, and there's a 50% chance they'll smack you around. Today, it was the Boks' turn. Losing for the first time in this tournament, 29-28. I am genuinely sorry I missed it. Of course, we also had the conclusion of the admittedly weird Pacific Nations Cup. As friend of the pod, Hugh Griffin pointed out, my USA Eagles faced Samoa for a chance to place third in a tournament where they'd won only one game and badly lost 2 others. But you know what? I would happily take that. My Eagles, they came out quickly, led 10-0 by, maybe a half hour in. A couple penalty kicks by Manu Samoa made it 6-10. I was already worried that we'd have another scoreless second half. A late try as Samoa took advantage of a yellow card against us made it 18-13. And that sinking feeling, it had sunk in again. So that would be your final score. The USA finishing a disappointing 4th out of 6 in the tournament. I didn't go into this expecting we'd win the whole thing, but I did think 3rd was like a pretty reasonable goal. So frustrating series for me. As I keep saying, I just don't know how or when we start to build more cohesion with this group. But here's my spin. Maybe this was it. Maybe these games. Maybe this was the training for the future. It's really hard to put a nice face on it right now, if I'm honest. But, I'm trying. Anyway, The match for, as they'd say in Wales, apparently all the beans, was of course Fiji versus Japan, the second game in the doubleheader at Hanazono Rugby Stadium. I was honestly expecting something along the lines of a 2 or 3 score win for the hosts, but it was Fiji converting a beauty in the corner to make it 20-10 as we entered the final quarter of play. Kind of snowballed after that too. Fiji rolled to a tournament win 41-17. You know, after a tough loss like this one, you had to wonder if Eddie Jones would start negotiating with another country, lie about it, angrily deny it, then ditch Japan altogether and leave them dead by the side of the road. You know, just based on history, of course. Anyway, we also had a ton of great women's internationals this weekend, but almost none of it was available to me. I'm starting to get pretty annoyed about this. So starting on Thursday, we had South Africa hosting Spain in Cape Town. Sadly, as I said, never found a way to watch it. Looked pretty exciting. However, the hosts beating their guests 36-19. The Netherlands were home to face Fiji. This would have been my first time seeing the Netherlands, men or women, so I was pretty excited. Again, didn't find a way to watch it. Huge bummer, especially when I saw how close it was. By full time, it was the host defeating the Fijiana 12-10. From what I read afterwards, it sounded like Fiji were their own worst enemy, like silly mistakes and handling errors sealing their fate. The one I was most excited for, though, Kenya versus Madagascar. That made it a hat trick of games I couldn't watch, though. I have to say, even the World Rugby site itself has no information past the actual score, which was a 63-19, a massive victory in Nairobi. Then finally, on Friday night, Wales were at Rodney Parade to welcome Australia, both teams badly needing a win. I decided I couldn't say this any better, so I'm just going to quote here from the WRU website. Quote, Wales secured an historic victory over Australia in the WXV warm-up clash in front of nearly 2,000 passionate supporters at Rodney Parade on Friday evening. Flanker Kate Williams' try with the last move of the game sealed a first win against the Wallaroos before Wales head to South Africa for WXV2 in Cape Town. Wales crossed for 4 tries by Williams, skipper Kira Bevan, and 2 by replacement hooker Molly Reardon in an intense and physical test match in Newport. This was the first win over the Aussies in 7 games in a test match, unquote. What a result. I know several people who will be absolutely over the moon with this one. Final score, an amazing 31-24. So good. So, swooping then all the way down to South Africa, it was, of course, the Currie Cup final featuring the Lions hosting the Sharks. I had a feeling it was going to be an exciting, high-scoring match if the season has taught me anything. So this was the first year I really dug in with this competition, and I was at the edge of my seat as the teams lined up in the tunnel. The Lions favored to win, actually, after a 9-year drought, though they only lost by 3 in 2019 to the Cheetahs. It was what the comms called it, quote, a perfect, nice, wet day, unquote, for rugby. I wondered how much the conditions would affect the outcome, with the last few rounds being played in baking sunshine. Sanele Nohamba, he set the tone early. It looked like we were in for another high-octane clash despite the slippery conditions. Both sides looking for quick ball at every corner, every opportunity. So, side note, the South African commentators, I gotta say, they're the only ones I know who don't shy away from actually commentating on the scrums. Like, they really try to explain what we're seeing. I wish that would become a trend around the rest of the world. The Sharks apparently weren't fazed by all the players they got sent off last week, since they won anyway, and they gave away a yellow card again just after a quarter hour. But by halftime, I swear, it was still 0-0. It felt like Bizarro World version of what we had been watching all season. As if by magic, it was suddenly 14-13. The Lions nabbing 2 tries and the Sharks won. That try, of course, was scored by a winger named Hooker, which totally cracks me up. But then, right at the end, Jordan Hendrickse nailed a really long-range bomb. It was unbelievable. Much like the Challenge Cup, the Sharks, they snuck up on everyone. An incredible season for the Currie Cup, the first I've ever watched, and your winners were the Sharks, 14-16. So, over in the FPC. So, just like last week, I'm becoming increasingly frustrated. I had no idea which games were semifinals or finals or who knows what else. So I read friend of the pod Alice Soper's newsletter this week, and it was all about the FPC. And I swear, after reading it like 3 times, I feel no closer to understanding these last few weeks of the competition. It's my vague sense that they play a Prem division and a Championship division, and perhaps those 2 pieces don't end at the same time? Maybe? It's maddening that their actual official website doesn't explain what we're watching, but there we are. So, for example, the fixture list tells us a game from this weekend is part of round 7, but a game from last week says it was part of round 8, so I give up. This week, the games I can say for sure actually happened included the most lopsided score I think I've ever seen, where Northland women got stampeded by the Waikato women. It was, hold on to your hats, 0-2. 81, a result that kind of makes you wish they had a mercy rule, right? So we also had Auckland Storm getting doubled up by Hawke's Bay Tui. That was 24-48. Bay of Plenty Volcanics also lost at home as the Canterbury women won in palindromic fashion 34-43. Manawatu Cyclones hammered Otago Spirit 33-3. And by the way, one of the Sunday fixtures was listed as round 7 and the other one round 9. Oh, rugby, you so silly. Anyway, then it was time to move over to the NPC. We had our traditional Storm Week fixture on Wednesday. It was a big one for me, with former Free Jacks assistant coach Mike Rogers still hunting for a win. I think they said it was after 390 days, a gnarly drought for sure. His Manawatu Turbos were facing the Southland Stags. The Stags decided to go very light on the selection, given the pressure of the Wednesday fixture combined with, I assume, a bit of disdain for this Manawatu team. I suppose it was hard to blame them, given the recent history. Speaking of the Free Jacks, Reese McDonald, he was back starting at 10. Taniela Filimone, he was starting on the wing, while the Southland roster looked largely unknown. I mean, to me at least. Side note, they had a woman I didn't recognize as the lead official in this one, and I was like, how dare they not tell us who she is and all this other stuff? And then I remembered, oh yeah, they never tell us anything about who the officials are, as far as the replays I see, at least. Maybe if there's warm-ups to these games or like pre-games, maybe they do that. So, comme ci, comme ça, I suppose. Anyway, I do have to say, Reese McDonald, he might be a real thing. He's got that elusiveness that you can't quantify or even explain. Like, he just gets through 2, 3, sometimes 4 defenders while just looking like he's running between traffic cones. It's uncanny, and I really hope he's back this year for my Free Jacks. He's looking like something very special. So Southland, they were first on the board. I'm not going to lie, I thought the Turbos offense looked nowhere. Like, it looked like high school stuff, and it pains me to say so. As we would learn, I'm obviously fast-forwarding it a bit, and Manawatu did get their first win of the year, though I can't honestly say it looked good, but they tied it up with 17 minutes left. Things happened pretty quickly after that. It was a great ending, 21 all, with just a minute left, and then it happened. A magical try for the Turbo Jacks gave them the lead right on the very death. An unbelievable ending. Manawatu getting their first win in over a year, 26-21. So good. So, anyway, round 7, and I'm actually sure that it's round 7, got underway early. Am I? Or was this round 8? God, my brain. Anyway, it was all I know. It was super early in the morning on Friday where I am, and it was the obvious game of the week getting us started. It was a rematch of last year's final. It was Hawke's Bay back at home to take on the Bulls of Taranaki. There was actually a weird rhythm to this one, with the visitors scoring 2 tries, then the home team scoring 2 tries, then the visitors again, and after a half hour, like we were on a pace for a 100-pointer, but it was not to be. It turned into kind of a crazy game. Taranaki running away with it despite a raft of injuries, on top of which Hawke's Bay ran out of hookers after a yellow card, so they had to go to uncontested scrums, but because that lack was caused by a card, that meant they had to send off another player, which caused the comms to just go completely nuts. How does that work? They asked, despite the fact that the ref had just explained it very clearly. Comms, this is your living. Learn the rules, okay? Anyway, by the end, it was a huge blowout. The Magpies giving away 50-plus points for the second time in a row, something that hadn't happened for 6 years before last week. And then Taranaki, they set an all-time scoring record for themselves, 19-63. What a swoon for Hawke's Bay. It's like the Ranfurly Shield kind of gave them extra powers or something. Anyway, I watched the Battle of the North next with Northland versus North Harbour, where Sophie Maka, in his debut season, he got his 7th try in 7 games, so I mean, watch out. Close to the break, score 14-12, the skies opened up and just brought down torrents. The comms said, well, we've seen some handling errors in the sunshine. Let's see what it's like now. Sure enough, the Taniwha, they took control. Despite a highlight or 2 from Sean Stevenson, it was a resounding win for Northland, 47-24. Canterbury, they dispatched Counties Monaco, 36-28. I have to say, this is crazy. It was one of those endings that I don't quite understand. Both teams already had try bonus points. Canterbury couldn't get any more points than that. But Counties could sneak in a losing bonus point if the game kept on. Sure enough, Canterbury decided to keep playing, gave away a turnover, nearly ended up conceding another try. I just don't get that game management or lack thereof. Like, either way, it was a quintessential tale of two halves. Canterbury getting all 36 points in the first half and shutting out their guests, eventually just barely managing to scrape away with a win, just bonkers stuff. Wellington, they were up all day. They seemed shocked to have Bay of Plenty roar back late and tie things up right at the end, forcing our first golden points of the season, where it took the home team just about a minute to get the score and the win. A crazy game, 30-25. We also had Auckland hosting Southland, who would obviously be smarting from losing their Storm Week fixture, but would they be able to bounce back on short rest? Well, they hadn't had a win at Eden Park in 85 years, so tonight was not the night to buck that trend. They were tied at 7 early, but Auckland were way too much, leading 24-7 at halftime, and then going on to win 27-19. Finally, Manawatu, they were right back at it, this time against Otago, looking to get back-to-back wins for the first time in at least a couple of years. It was a windy, muddy scene at the start, with fans braving the rain to show their support for the Turbojacks. As the conditions cleared up, though, seemed to help get Otago going. They snapped a losing streak of their own to win 10-28 at Palmerston North. I need a little water break here. Sorry for that. Anyway, it kind of feels like I buried the lead here because the URC, it returned to action as well, minus the 4 teams in the Rainbow Nation, who I'm told will make up these fixtures during the Six Nations window, which, once you've gotten over how stupid it is that the Currie Cup final was scheduled for the opening weekend of the URC, and the fact that nobody seemed to notice until like a week ago, it sort of makes perfect sense. Sorry, cough break. So your game of the week this week was Ulster versus Glasgow. They were back at the Kingspan to face the reigning champions. The visitors started out hot with try machine Johnny Matthews getting a try very early. The comms screamed, "And the Warriors machine is on the march again!" Oh, guys, take it easy. Anyway, Ulster naturally took exception and kept close the whole way, down 2 at the break and just threatening all day, right at the death. I mean, I don't know. I felt it coming. It was weird. I'm not a Glasgow supporter, and I even stupidly picked Ulster for big things last season. But when Ulster crossed that line 4 minutes into the red to steal an unlikely win, I don't know, it just hurt. It felt rough. I guess week 1 is the time when all our rock-solid predictions come undone. Either way, the fans were partying in the stands as they took down the reigning champs to open their season with a bang, 20-19 in Belfast. So, around the league, the season began in the rain in Edinburgh, where Leinster rocked up to what looked like a full house there at the Hive. As Darcy Graham drove towards the line, hoping to get the first try of the night, the ref shouted, "He's short!" which kind of seemed mean, right? When Pierre Schumann scored the first try, they gave us some audio from the Leinster coaching booth, where Leo Cullen was heard to say, "Morning, Gromit, time for walkies." But it was bang, bang, back and forth. Leinster, as you and I and everyone who's watched rugby in the last 10 years could see coming, pulled away, getting the win despite a try that somehow got the crowd really excited, even though it was effectively meaningless, but good job by the home crowd, I guess. Final score, 31-33. I guess that was a losing bonus point, so it's not nothing. Anyway, Cardiff, they opened their new campaign against Zebre, who are embroiled in potential controversy at the moment. Would they come out and show what they can do, or their performance suffer from all the rumors surrounding their ongoing participation in the URC? Maybe those things don't matter at all. It was a pretty straightforward game, with, as expected, the home team winning 22-17. On Saturday, we had a nice little Welsh derby, Dragons versus Ospreys. They trotted out the big guns on comms. Philippa Tuttiett was there. She was with her understudy, Tom Shanklin. Dragons were down 3 at halftime, and oh my word, what an ending. A bruising series led to a try under the post with the clock already in the red, and Lloyd Evans made the easy extras to give them a victory at home to start their season. Ospreys clearly in shock. It was 23-21 at full time, and the Dragons are a third of the way to matching their win total from last season. So good. So after that, speaking of derbies, Munster welcomed by Connacht to Thomond Park. It was a heartbreaker for me. It was actually a lot like Ulster versus Glasgow, except that Connacht are the team I actually support. It looked like Connacht were in control most of the way, only to have Munster sort of steal it away right at the end. It was the outcome I expected ahead of time, but then they kind of dangled a win in front of my face for 2 hours, only to go, whoop, nope, so sorry, too bad, so sad, ending 35-33. Ouch. Finally, We had Benetton at home for Scarlets. I had predicted a big win for the home team, but when I tuned in very late, I found the Scarlets up 5 with only a few minutes remaining. Jacob Umaga, he had a chance to win it in the dying moments, but it went awry. They were left with a 20-all draw, and I honestly don't know which team will be more frustrated with that result. You know, the most frustrated person might be me. Anyway, elsewhere, the Premiership was also back, but I'm still not willing to pay the extra fee to watch it. I did check out all the highlights for the Game of the Week, which was, of course, unsurprisingly, the rematch of last year's season final, this time Bath hosting Northampton. I should say hosting the rebranded Northampton Saints. Unlike the recent result, Bath outscored their guests 5 tries to 1, with Finn converting every single one and adding a penalty to boot. No pun intended. Ollie Lawrence, he got over the line. I always liked that guy, so it's just good to see his name on the score sheet once again. The other 4 tries were spread out pretty evenly, with the Saints' Josh Kemeny getting their lone try of the match. Finn Smith, or Alt.Finn, as I've decided to call him, he added 11 points in total, but it was never close, really. Last year's runners-up have started the new year humming, getting a convincing win over the reigning champions 38-16. Anyway, elsewhere around the Prem, it was another tough start for the Newcastle Falcons, who got smashed by the always unpredictable Bristol Bears 3-24. After one game, we're already left to wonder if they can win one all year. There was some real positive buzz about them in the offseason, but if changes are afoot, they have yet to reveal themselves. The stupid Exeter Chiefs, they started the season at home for the Leicester. Did they really win this thing, Tigers? And it was Jamie Shilcock's drop goal right on halftime that would end up making the difference. Tigers winning 14-17. Gloucester, they were home for Saracens. Christian Wade's quest to become the Prem's all-time leading try scorer will have to wait for at least another week, as he failed to get on the scoreboard in his team's 26-35 opening loss. Fergus Burke, by the way, one of my favorite guys from down in New Zealand. He missed 3 of his 5 conversions for the series. Otherwise, he probably would have been the round's high scorer. Anyway, finally, on Sunday, we had the Sale Sharks back in what I think of as Printerland to face my Harlequins. Looked like one for the purists, 9-8 at halftime and 12-11 by the end. Not exactly Super Rugby. So, of course, it was also already round 3 of, I think, 180,816 in the top 14. Your Jeu de la Semaine was my Border Beagles hosting Racing 92. UBB looked set on righting the ship after last week. They already read 31-17 at the break, but crazy things happen all the time in this league, so you never know. Bordeaux, they kept their foot sur l'essence in the second half, and even though Racing doubled their first half total, it was still a bit of a walkover. UBB bouncing back to win 52-34. So in the rest of the week's action, Montpellier lost to Toulouse 11-20, big shock. Clermont, they beat Bayonne 26-10. Castres felled Stade Perpignan 27-12. La Rochelle almost doubled up Pau 49-25, and Vannes, they got their first win of the year, beating weird-ass Lyon 30-20. On Sunday, the drink boxes were home for Toulon, and it was a surprisingly low-scoring 10-14 total by the end. So even this early on, it looks like Bayonne and Perpignan are in a fist fight to earn the league's bottom spot. I mean, maybe it's more of a slap fight. After 3 rounds, Toulouse are the only remaining unbeaten team, so I'm not even sure how to finish that sentence, really. Well, by the music, you'll know it's time for this week's Diamond in the Ruck Award. And this week, the award goes to Luke Yendall. Mr. Yendall, you scored the try that sent Rodney Parade into a euphoric roar close to 4 minutes after the clock had gone red against a heavily favored Ospreys team to give your team an opening week win for the first time in the history of the URC. You didn't enter the match until the 62nd minute, but you provided the spark for perhaps the most thrilling moment of the weekend. And even as a neutral, I was over the moon for the result. Luke Yendall, congratulations to you, for you are this week's Diamond in the Ruck. Well done, sir. Okay, that, of course, brings us to our updates and previews, and by all gods, I might need a second podcast just to list it all. So next weekend, the number one listing for me is the return of the WXV for its second iteration, which means, among other fixtures, my USA Eagles facing England. Oh, crap. I just realize what that means. Oy vey. Oh, well, I'll be watching anyway. Either way, Canada versus France, that should be a cracker. We've got Italy versus Scotland in the WXV2. Spain hosts Madagascar in the WXV3, which means I can finally see Madagascar play. Those are just some of the highlights. Stay tuned for some upcoming guests. Well, we're going to have a chance to talk about all of it. Meanwhile, we've got the final piece of the boringly named Rugby Championship. We, I assume, have some FPC fixtures, whatever they might mean. We've got round 8 of the NPC. We've got full slates for the URC, the top 14, the Premiership. Interestingly, we've also got World Cup qualifiers for South America featuring clashes between Peru and Venezuela, Colombia and Costa Rica, and Chile and Paraguay. So, by the way, thanks to all of you for not calling me out on completely ignoring the fact that the Rugby Europe Championship is already through a couple of rounds. I regret not being able to chat all things Bohemians rugby this year. There's just not enough RAM to cover that with all this other stuff. So simply put, though, on the bright side, if you love rugby, you have a multitude of options this month. It is just astounding. So much fun. A cornucopia of action. Anyway, that does it for another week. I'm starting to feel worse as the thing goes on. I think I need some more water. Even I was not prepared for how much rugby is on right now. I missed a couple of doozies this week. Going to have to look harder at the greater fixture list before picking and choosing next week. Also, I'm strongly considering making sort of each competition its own mini show, if you will. I'm still not sure if that's a good idea. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any input, as always, get in touch. I always appreciate hearing from you. So, to all of you across the globe, cheers, talk to you soon, and be well.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today.
Oh, it does, neat.
You want to tempt the wrath of the whatever from high atop the thing?